Great. Welcome everybody to Wildlife Wednesday. It's Kathleen Johnson. I'm one of the co-founders for the Calgary Urban Species Response Team, and we're joined here by Andrew Yule. We're going to be talking today about Save Nose Creek. This is the first of 3 of a special edition series. We're going to be looking at issues that are in or around Calgary that are affecting or may affect the ecology of different systems and wildlife, the people in the area, and so on. So whatever our opinions are, and maybe you don't even have one yet, because maybe some of us won't know anything about this particular topic. But that's a good thing. We're coming from different places of learning, and we're here to start off from wherever you are. So I first just want to say I'm actually joining you right now from Kelowna, which are the unceded traditional territory of the Sea Elk Okanagan people. Calgary Urban Wildlife, Calgary Urban Species Response Team is dedicated to supporting truth and reconciliation in all that we do. So in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we strive to reduce urban risk to wildlife, support mindful care of local ecology, and to share meaningful opportunities to learn together and encourage participation. We gratefully acknowledge the Indigenous peoples and traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Kainai, the Siksika, the Piikani, as well as the Yaqsni Nakota and the Tsuut'ina Nations and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. So welcome to the Fall 2022 Virtual Speaker Series Special Edition. Andrew, it is really exciting to have you. Andrew Yule is a community advocate from the North Central Calgary. Andrew has worked on the steering committee for the advocates of North Calgary High School and is a director on LRT on the Green. And Andrew founded Save Nose Creek on July 1st, 2022 to give Nose Creek a voice in the midst of many developments in and around the Nose Creek Valley. So Andrew, I think that you have a presentation to provide to us. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. How would you like to proceed? Do you want to go ahead and do a presentation first, and then we'll have our questions after?
For sure. Yeah, I can start my presentation now if you'd like.
Perfect. Wonderful. Let us know if you have any.
I just want to thank Kathleen and Marissa and the team at Calgary Urban Species and the Calgary Urban Species Response Team as a whole for inviting us here, Save Nose Creek. I also want to do a land acknowledgement as well. Through a lot of what we're doing here with Save Nose Creek, we've learned that Nose Creek runs through the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani. And so I hope to kind of shed some light on that as well throughout my presentation, but just wanted to also kind of tack on my own personal land acknowledgement as well. So I'll just get right to it here.
Thank you for that.
Sharing my screen. All right. Also wanted to just give a shout out to Crystal Reynolds. She's on our team. She's done up a lot of these graphics for us. Really appreciate all of her creative energy, and I want to apologize ahead of time as I go through these slides for my design choices, because I know I will hear from her. Because I don't have the design eye, it's Crystal, and she might give me a tongue lashing for some of these slides, but I digress. We will continue.
It looks fantastic, Andrew, and I'm sure your design choices are epic.
So where is Nose Creek? Can you see this okay? Maybe
Yeah. On my end, it's coming through beautifully.
Okay. So with Nose Creek, it starts up near Crossfield, kind of northwest of Crossfield, comes down to through the Rocky View County, through Airdrie, goes right through the center of Airdrie. In fact, Airdrie has a regional park in the center of Airdrie dedicated to Nose Creek. It also has a museum in Airdrie dedicated to Nose Creek as well. So Airdrie definitely is kind of leading the way, leading the charge for Nose Creek advocacy, partly because they had a Nose Creek Historical Society way back in the day that kind of just gathered the history of Nose Creek. So it goes from Crossfield to Airdrie down through Balzac. In fact, if you go to Balzac Mall, you can actually walk across the parking lot and go have a look at Nose Creek from Balzac Mall. Then from Balzac, it comes down into North Calgary, through basically along the alignment of Deerfoot. If you look on the north end of Calgary, as you're going along Deerfoot, you will see Nose Creek along the side. And there's, I'll get into why and in a bit, but basically it goes from the northern edge of Calgary all the way to the Bow River downtown, through all of North Calgary. And it's tucked away. Sometimes like we don't really notice it, but Nose Creek, as you can see, the watershed, this picture here is the watershed of Nose Creek. And it's massive. Also West Nose Creek kind of, there's at Bettington Trail is where the confluence between West Nose Creek and Nose Creek are. So it's kind of an offshoot of Nose Creek as well. But a lot of our advocacy is definitely up Nose Creek, and then there's a little bit of West Nose Creek in our advocacy as well. So I'll just go forward. So who is Save Nose Creek? Save Nose Creek is a community-led initiative with the goal of achieving an official park designation for the Nose Creek Valley. How did we start this? I mean, I was kind of telling the story in council recently. Is I have kind of a I would say a shameful start to the developments in the Nose Creek Valley. I mean, when I heard as a Northern Hills resident that there was going to be development in the valley, my first thought was, great, this is an opportunity to get an Arby's, because Calgary is very lacking in Arby's restaurants. And so I had a shameful indifference to this creek to begin with, because in our area we are definitely lacking a lot of infrastructure that many other communities have, and so development always comes with opportunity for our communities. However, I did get a flyer from a neighbor. Her name's Rita, and she was a little concerned about some of the development, and she went into detail about her concerns about the new developments. And so it really got me thinking, okay, well, maybe I should stop thinking about Arby's, and I should start thinking about my community and why my community's kind of not so keen on this development. And so yeah, I just started looking, and we the more that I learned, I guess what I call it is an accidental education in Nose Creek. The more I realized, hey, we need to do something about this. And so we got a group of us together to start this this advocacy group, and on July 1st we started it. I mean, it was and it's been a whirlwind ever since. I've been nonstop creek, a creek fanatic for the last 3 months, and it's been a ride. So I guess one of the things we want to talk about tonight is, why is Save Nose Creek doing this? And I think one of the things that the 4 areas we kind of touch on in this presentation are to protect First Nations and settler archaeological discoveries, to protect the green space and nature, to protect the watershed and riparian areas, and to protect the biodiversity. And so This view here is something I get to see almost every day now because of this advocacy group. I start my days with my dog, and we come out and have a look, see what's going on in the valley, and it surprises me every day. This morning it was we posted some pictures, and it was the fog had rolled in, and the sun was melting like one side of the hill here, but it hadn't reached the valley, and so you had this frost in the valley. So check out our socials to see it. It's really neat. So this is my view every day, and so I get to come out and have a look at it and see what's going on. So the first thing I want to touch on about what we're trying to protect is the archaeological discoveries. One of the first things I did when I started this group was I Googled Nose Creek, and I came up with a book. The Historical Society I was talking about from Airdrie wrote a book in 1997. I don't know if you guys can still see me, but 100 years. See you. You can see me? So, they can't see this. Okay, okay. It's 100 years of Nose Creek Valley history, and they released this in 1997. I think it was included in those like welcome wagons to some communities. So you might actually have one lying around your house that you didn't know about. But I had to find mine in Baltimore, Maryland.
No kidding.
I got on the Amazon, and I ordered it, and it came. It had a long journey from Baltimore, Maryland. It was a thrift store in Baltimore, Maryland that sent it to me. I probably could have found it local somewhere. That's probably on me, but the one I did get was actually signed by the author, who is now passed. So that was kind of a neat find in Baltimore, Maryland. But when I was reading that 100-year history of Nose Creek, one thing that kind of stood out was kind of the history that goes along with Nose Creek, the archaeological history. And so some of the things I want to talk about today are the Old North Trail, the Calgary to Edmonton Wagon Trail, the Balzac Archaeological Site, and numerous other sites of significance that are in the valley. So this map here was given to us by the City of Calgary. We have on our steering committee, one of our members is Sammy Oury, and he is a history buff. So he was really interested in the history side of our advocacy, and he's been digging in with the City of Calgary and the province of Alberta about these trails. And so this map here is your historic trails through Calgary map. And so the one that we're focusing on is the one that's north to south. There's kind of like the Northwest Trail. That's the old Morley Trail. But the one that's north-south is our Old North Trail. And that's the City of Calgary's best guess of the alignment. But that's the map we got. And so at the northern edge, it kind of splits off into two sections. The Old North Trail is the First Nations prehistoric trail from Alaska to Mexico. So it has many different offshoots, but one of those offshoots comes right through Calgary. And it's other jurisdictions like Montana have actually marked their trail very well. Yeah, their portion of the Old North Trail very well, and I don't think we in Calgary have done it justice, and so that's part of why we've included it in our advocacy here. And so that Old North Trail was kind of the basis for the Calgary to Edmonton Wagon Trail, which runs along there as well. So we've this is another City of Calgary map that shows how the Old North Trail, Calgary to Edmonton Wagon Trail, would follow the creek. So the left alignment does follow Nose Creek, which is really intriguing to us. So this you can kind of see Balzac Mall on the right side, and then Balzac is kind of up to the north northwest. So you can see how it just kind of goes straight through Balzac. And also like the other offshoot goes kind of straight through the mall. So we've built a mall on top of a historic trail. That's always fun. The one thing, what Sammy's been doing is actually going out on kind of, as best he can, we can't go on private property, but as best he can, he's gone on some excursions to look from the road of whether or not we can actually see with our naked eye something that resembles a trail. And so he's gone out and he's sending his findings to the Alberta government and to the city of Calgary. The map on the far left here is from the Alberta government. And so this is the map that he looked at and decided to go have a look at. These circled areas are undisturbed land. That's key when they're talking about archaeological sites. It has to be undisturbed to have historical value. And we're running out of that undisturbed land to find historic sites because of all the developments that we are doing. In fact, if we're looking straight at this map right now, this is Stoney Trail and Deerfoot Trail. So the one thing that we have learned through a former counselor, Brian Pincott, is that when they did this whole Stoney Trail development back in 2004, we lost a lot of the historical sites through this. Part of, like, you could see the wagon trail, you could see teepee ring, you could see all sorts of different historical resources that we lost, basically, just for the Stoney Trail to come through. At the time in 2004, there was a Calgary Herald article. One of the neighboring properties, his name is Blaine Thornton, and he grew up in the area, and so he knew where all the historical items are, and was able to kind of tell Calgary Herald, like, we are at risk of losing all this. And so there are people every decade that come out and say, hey, can we take a step back and just evaluate this? And that's kind of what we're trying to do as Save Nose Creek, is step back and evaluate what we could be losing if we continue our developments near the creek. Mm-hmm. So basically, when Sammy went out, he saw these kind of tracks, which are in the circled area, which resemble a trail. And there's undisturbed land just in the foreground here that could potentially lead to discovery. However, it's really up to the landowner to do that. And so when these landowners decide to develop, it's up to them to do a cultural resource impact assessment. And so it's really kind of out of people's hands when it's on private land like this. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at in the historical investigation. But I guess one of the things that I want to emphasize is, like, there are actual historical sites in this valley. The prehistoric Balzac archaeological site was found in the late 70s, early 80s, when they were building a pipeline through the area. That's how they kind of stumbled across the Balzac archaeological site. Again, it's in that area that I was just showing you. It's north of Stoney, kind of west of Deerfoot Trail. It's nestled in right next to the creek. And because that was a prehistoric bison processing facility, that's the proximity to the creek is kind of significant in that while they're processing these bison that they've killed, they would discard pieces that they weren't going to use into the creek, because you don't want to attract wildlife, so you throw bison heads into the creek, which is why there's a lot of bison heads in the creek.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, there is a lot of bison bones. Actually, it was funny. We were just talking about iNaturalist, the app, and I was looking through some of the sightings, and one of them along this area is bison bones. So it's
right.
Yeah, it's because there's history here. So this site here, this particular site, is protected by the province. It has a heritage site certification, but it makes, like, the fact that this is here makes us feel like there's more. There's a lot more that's through this valley, and the fact that Deerfoot, or that Stoney Trail continued forward with the construction, we're fearful that other construction, other development will just, we found something, but it's too late now. We're going to keep going. So I'm very, very happy to have Sammy on our team, because he's very interested in the history side, and so he's definitely digging in, and he's been sharing what he's finding with both the city of Calgary and Alberta, and hopefully we'll see some headway in there. But that's a reason why I wanted to start with my land acknowledgement, is this land is there's evidence here that without a shadow of a doubt, we are on traditional Blackfoot Confederacy land when we are advocating for our park here. All right, moving on. Another reason we are doing this is to protect the green space and nature. This is a picture here. It was in January, I believe. This is the stormwater ponds. There's a nice, so it's funny, this little pond area has a nice pathway around it. There's no way to get to that pathway. It was kind of like, here's a nice little park area, but you can't access it. The railway runs one way, and then Country Hills Boulevard there's no sidewalk on Country Hills Boulevard. There's no way to access this little park area, but it's bustling with activity, and I'll show you some of that later. The bluffs on the ridge are another just amazing. I don't know. It's like a coulee. It's an amazing scene. Like that's where I'm taking most of my photos from, because I'm up on the ridge and I come look, and it's just it's hard to like, if you don't live it, like, I think if us living in Calgary, we get used to it, and we don't really appreciate or value the bluffs that we have through these valleys. Like you look at, I don't know, it's just it's something that's underappreciated, I believe, and want to make sure that we are appreciating it. One of the things I want to touch on with this as well, that kind of just came to me as Kathleen and I have been talking about, is these green spaces are where people want to go, and when we're not directing the traffic of where people should go, they find themselves in places that they shouldn't go. And so that's another reason why I want this park designation, is so that we can direct the traffic of where people should be going, where people shouldn't be going. One of the things that in my advocacy, again, I am not a scientist. I am not anything near plant life or animal life, but so I would, early on in our advocacy, I'd be taking pictures of these Canadian thistles, and I'm like, oh, this looks pretty. It's purple. It's out in the world. But apparently, through me posting these things, people are like, that's an invasive species. You should report that. So, oh, I just thought it looked pretty. But what I'm learning about riparian areas is human kind of interaction that causes poor health and brings in these Canadian thistles and brings in these invasive species that I that I think we can mitigate with an official park designation.
Yeah.
I think we can properly move people in the right direction away from the places they shouldn't be going. When I walk my dog, I'm also running into other community advocates. One person in particular, her name's Kathy. She's lived in the area for a long time. In the like since Coventry was built in the 90s, she's been around. And what she told me was that there used to be red foxes in the area, and I've never seen a red fox in the area. And her comment was because of people that would off leash their dog and scare these foxes, or would these dogs would chase these foxes away. And so again, when we're protecting this green space, like there's lots of benefit to trying to create a park and create proper spaces for off-leash areas, proper spaces for people to walk, and spaces where people really shouldn't go. And I think that's something I'm learning. Like I've learned that in the last maybe 3 days talking with Kathleen and Kathy. Like it just kind of dawned on me that, you know, if we had this park designation and we properly mitigated or properly directed the traffic, I think we could do much good in helping the environment. Okay. Another part of our advocacy, a part of this green space, is the Bettington Errand. The picture on the left is from 1943. 1943, they did a geological study all across Alberta. This is the Alberta government, and they came across the Bettington Errand. And you can see they were very fascinated by it. In the report, they talked about how it's been smoothed by animals that rub up against it. And you can actually see both in that picture and the less attractive picture on the right with all the vandalism. There is a natural crater around the erratic that was formed by bison and buffalo that would rub up against it. So it is a buffalo rubbing stone, wow. And you can see how we're treating it right now. It's not very well. If you're familiar with Calgary, you know there's the great big or the great erratic in Okotoks. There's the split rock erratic, and we're trying to protect those erratics because they're pretty marvelous in their geology as well. This particular erratic came all the way from Jasper, from a mountain in Jasper, on a glacier, all the way to Calgary, and then dropped off in Calgary. So just thinking about that is just amazing, and this is the result. and this is kind of like the running theme is nobody's paying attention to Nose Creek. Nobody is paying attention to this wall, to this erratic, because one, we can't really access it, and two, they've just, all of this land is developer land, and I have to be very careful in where I go because I don't want to trespass on anybody's land, but it's things like this that are just kind of falling off the wayside. That's why we have it in our logo is the Bettington Erratic should be protected, both by Alberta and Calgary. It is a marvel, and you can even tell if you look closely at the 1943 picture and the 2022 picture. Like it looks like we're eroding away. Like some of the top there, and so we're losing it. And there's some countries that have full-on government protections for erratics, and we're treating our erratic like this. Makes me a little uneasy about it. So
yeah. Wow.
One other thing in our proposal, and I was fascinated that we might have somebody online from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. We learned about the Cattle Point Urban Star Park in Victoria, and it got our attention in that this picture here was taken not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, when the Aurora Borealis came through, and taken with a iPhone, and still able to see the night sky. The Urban Star Park idea is that you can go to a park in a municipality and still be able to see the stars. I think that the light pollution that we see in major cities makes it really difficult to see the night sky. And what I'm learning about with all the biodiversity is there's night creatures that won't be around if we continue to develop out some of these areas as the lights, we saw the in our area in the district, the warehouses are growing and growing, and on the other side, which is why we're concerned, is some of this warehouse creep down into the valley. But like there's an Amazon facility there, like all hours of the night, you have trucks coming in and out, and you have the headlights flashing across the valley, and so we're going to be losing those nocturnal creatures that need the night sky, that need darkness. I've personally been able to witness, owls in our area, and so if we continue to just kind of develop, that night sky is going to go away. Those nocturnal animals are going to go away. So we were really intrigued by the Cattle Point Urban Star Park, and think that our park proposal is a very intriguing idea to maybe be an urban star park for Calgary. Next, protecting the watershed and riparian areas. So this is where I've been learning a lot with Nose Creek. Is there is the creek itself. I go back, I like to bring this up because it's a funny fact. When I'm Googling at Nose Creek, and when I'm looking at historical archives of the Calgary Herald regarding Nose Creek, I came up with a former mayor, Rod Seitz, from the 70s, who called Nose Creek a open sewer. It was basically an open sewer, because at the time, you had both Airdrie and Crossfield emptying their effluents into Nose Creek. So it became just a really gross creek. And so I'm not surprised at how some of these previous generations didn't take Nose Creek very seriously. So right now, we have gotten better than an open sewer. We are at 53% unhealthy, which is an improvement, and about 5% healthy, and then the rest is healthy but with problems. And so that is an improvement. West Nose Creek is a little bit better, with 37% rated healthy, and there's been a lot of work put behind that by the Nose Creek Watershed Partnership to make sure that that health is getting better. But we're looking at our creek here with Nose Creek, and there's a lot of work to do. And I know that the Watershed Partnership has many different projects that they're working on to do that. But what I'm learning is the poor health scores are mainly attributed to invasive plants like the Canadian thistle I was talking about before. human disturbance, like I was talking before, and human alteration, which is what I'm most concerned about when we talk about development in this area, because we've a creek needs to breathe. A creek needs to be able to move, and when you restrict its movements, it's causes issues. One of our kind of worst case scenario is the Greenview industrial area. Back in the 50s, they decided they were going to channel it. So instead of having the windy creek that we should have, which provides flood mitigation, which provides all sorts of riparian health benefits. They just channeled it straight through Greenview so that you have industrial area on one side and houses on the other side. And so if you've ever been through that area, it doesn't look like this. And it's just, it's basically industrial area, a little bit of grass, creek, little bit of grass, houses. Like it's not what we see here in our section. And so we're trying to make sure that developments that happen through here aren't affecting the creek, aren't realigning the creek in any way. One of the things that that stuck with me, I had a phone call recently with Clint Goodman of the Airdrie. He's the Airdrie representative for the Nose Creek Watershed Partnership, and he said something that really resonated with me, and that's Nose Creek is our ecological spine. And like if you think back to that watershed picture I showed you at the beginning, it's like the spine, and then you have also a nervous system of different offshoots, which it's a living kind of ecology. And so really this side of things, this is really where I feel like we need to do a better job. I think we need to really focus on getting that health score up, and we, in order to do that, this creek runs through several different municipalities. We've got to work together and take leadership in each one of those municipalities to make sure we are making this creek healthier. Next, protect our biodiversity. Really, it's been, so again, since I started this, I never used to go down into the valley, and as soon as I did, it's like creature after creature after creature that I'm running into. And so like some of the things I've seen are like the deer, there's weasels, porcupine. The porcupine was very interesting to see. I couldn't get a picture of it because it was really kind of nestled into a tree, scratching the bark or whatever. At first I thought it was a coyote, so I was kind of terrified, but then it was really slow moving, and I could outrun a porcupine. But there's lots of different there's lots of different water creatures like brown trout. I saw a picture on a community group just recently of a tiger, salamander, lots of different, just so many different things that I'm finding in this ecological spine of just variety of animals. Another like I probably should have been working more on this presentation, but I was distracted when Kathleen told me about iNaturalist, and I was looking at all the different creatures that are in that other people have seen, and there's like moose and there's eagles, and it's like I've never seen these things before, but now I'm going to keep my eyes open for them because people have seen them down here, and it's fantastic. So one of the things I saw on the weekend, and I wanted to share with this group, was this little guy. So at first I thought this was a weasel, but the more when I went home and I looked at the video and I looked online, looks like it's a mink, which it doesn't surprise me. There's minks all across Nose Creek because they're water, like little miniature otter things. And again, I'm not a scientist, so there might be more smarter people listening to me as I'm calling things otter things. But this is a water type weasel type thing. But minks, like again, I didn't know we had mink in Calgary until I saw this little guy. And then the birds, which this team really loves their birds. And I have a new appreciation for birds, definitely, especially the great blue herons that I see up and down this creek. Again, things that I never really thought about until I started going down into this creek. But this is a massive bird that we have in Calgary that nests and hunts all along the Nose Creek, and I've seen it on countless occasions. It's not like it's hiding. It's there. It's out there. And I've seen it several times, and it's actually it's humbling, I guess, to see something such a large bird in Calgary. The other ones I've seen, red-winged blackbirds along the stormwater ponds. Like that's a really cool bird. I have a new appreciation for birds because they're just cool looking things. And I've seen blue jays, I've seen magpies, crows, hawks, ducks. In fact, yesterday I was walking, got swooped by a hawk. And
wow.
I was both terrified, but also I was trying to get my camera out. I didn't get a good picture of it, but it's just like how have I missed this? I've lived here most of my life, and I've missed so much of these animals. And if we continue this development, we're gonna miss out. So the question I always get is, isn't it too late? I mean, so this is the Stoney Industrial Area Structure Plan. It is a massive swath of land that was approved in 2005. You see Nose Creek is along the western side. Airport Trail is the southern boundary, Stoney Trail the northern boundary, and Barlow Trail is the eastern boundary. And it's just like a massive swath of land. And at the time, I've been looking at the old newspapers, and at the time, nobody was a huge fan of it. I'm surprised it got through council, in that the Mayor Dave Bronconnier voted against it. We had the area councillor vote against it.
Wow.
We had administration was concerned about the extent of it. They didn't feel that it should be this, this expansive. The community association, which funnily enough, the community association president at the time was Jyoti Gondek, and she was concerned about the fact that residents weren't being included in the discussions. And the residents were standing up against this. And at the time, most of it had to do with the increased traffic, and there had been no preparation for the roads and the ins and outs. So at the time, that was the main focus. But I really don't think people even really paid attention to, again, a creek that nobody talks about is Nose Creek. So is it too late? And so when people ask me that, I like to point to some precedents. The first precedent is Fish Creek. Fish Creek, there was a 10-year-old city plan to build a high-density road through Fish Creek, and it was Peter Lougheed who came in and said, "No, we're not doing that. It was cancel that 10-year-old plan. This is going to be a park." And so I'm really looking for some political will like Peter Lougheed, who just comes in and says, "No, this needs to be a park." And so when they did that in the 70s, it allowed, so one of the things that the city was battling with at the time was like, do we build a park in Fish Creek or do we build a park on Nose Hill? We can't do both. And so when the province came in and helped with Fish Creek, the city could focus on Nose Hill. And so Nose Hill definitely had developers that had plans for that land. So Karma Developers was an owner of 1,052 acres of Nose Hill, and so the city council chose to buy that land from developers and build a park. And at the time, they were talking about a 4,100 acre park. The Nose Hill that we know today is now 2,700 acres, but half of that was basically bought up. It was like 1,300 acres was bought by the city to make a park. And so there is a precedent for the city of Calgary to make parks of developer land. So what are our goals? So as Save Nose Creek, our primary goal is to build a provincial or urban national park in the Nose Creek Valley. And this is kind of our rough sketch of what it could look like. You see in Calgary, it starts kind of at the northern edge of Greenview Industrial here at the bottom, and then goes up through Confluence Park, the Aurora Park area that's kind of in debate. That's up Nose Creek to the west, and then right to the city limits, which probably extend beyond Stoney Trail, but right to the city limits of Calgary. And that blue dotted area is about maybe 1,700 acres, give or take, and that's less than Nose Hill. Like, and some of this land is city-owned land, but there's developer-owned land. So definitely looking to find a way to work with municipalities to kind of pave a way. So that's our primary goal. That's what we're really hoping for. But to get there, we have some other goals. So secondary goal, we got to work with these municipalities to kind of pave the way or do a vision cast of what a urban national park or a provincial park could look like across municipalities. Unless we're thinking about it, unless we're actually taking steps forward to make it attractive to a province, to the province, or to the federal government to build a park here, it's not going to happen. But we need to start that vision as municipalities, and so that's why we're asking our municipalities to increase the Nose Creek setback. Right now it's 100 feet, 30 meters, and we'd like them to increase it to 300 feet, giving it more room to breathe, more room to meander, more room to allow this ecological spine to grow. So that's why we're really pushing on the municipalities to work on this. I'll touch on that more in a second, but kind of proof is in the pudding here. The city of Edmonton is actually in the running for a urban national park. The Liberal government wants to make 15 urban national parks by 2030, and Edmonton's in the running because they're actually taking steps. The city of Edmonton is taking steps forward to investigate a River Valley urban national park. And they already have Elk Island National Park, just kind of like not too far from them. So Edmonton's getting all these national parks, and we haven't created a cohesive vision here in Calgary and area to bring an urban national park to us. So it's really why we're pushing hard on our municipalities in this secondary goal to work on city park designations to create a Nose Creek park system. And then our third goal is to speak for the creek. When we're given these opportunities like tonight to talk, give a voice to Nose Creek, we need to take them. We've been talking with the media has been very kind to us. We've had lots of interest from media giving us a platform to speak for the creek. And we kind of lucked out when we started our advocacy on July 1st is around Stampede time. And so media, like while Stampede's going, it's hard to get anybody for interviews and stuff. And I was like, hey, I am here. I will talk to you about the creek. So it was kind of a blessing that way, a curse in another way, in that I couldn't get a hold of any politician because they were all at Stampede parties. And so, but we want to make sure that we're speaking for the Nose Creek as an advocacy group and as kind of just fanatical creekheads. We want to make sure that more and more people learn about this kind of hidden creek in the valley in Calgary, so that more people are aware of it. Because that really, in my journey, I needed to be kind of face to face with it to realize it's there, number one, and to realize all the stuff that's connected to it. So we want to make sure that we are speaking for the creek with all the projects that are going on around Nose Creek. And so here in Calgary, we have a ton of different projects. The picture here on the left is the 11th Street Northeast Stoney Trail overpass. It's in high gear. They're building this overpass to nowhere for preparation of like the newer communities on the northern side of Stoney Trail. They want to connect this to a road that goes through the valley, which is 128th Avenue. So we want to be raising our voice, giving the creek a voice, so it's not forgotten. It's given the time of day and then some. Like let's make the creek the focus of these projects. Like I fear that I get painted as this anti-development person, and from the beginning of my story, like I was very much pro-development until I learned about the creek, and that's why we're giving this voice, so that people can learn about the creek, so that they can make responsible decisions in the developments that go around it. So an example of us speaking for the creek was most recently with a land change that happened here in Calgary. Basically, one of the developer-owned lands wanted to change their land use, which kind of caught our eye, because you look at these properties, they all have varying effects on Nose Creek. I would say the ones closest to the creek were what drew our attention, but the ones further off, I mean, it's like we talked about before, it's disturbed land. It's already kind of lost its ecological and historical value, but the ones right next to the creek were really concerning to us, in that they are very threatening to the creek. And they're actually, because this 2005 area structure plan was decided on so long ago, some of these properties are closer than the 100-foot setback that's already kind of in place to it. So they've been grandfathered into older setback rules than there are right now. And so that was really what caused us to get involved. And so where do you start? How do you deal with this? No, number one, like I only by chance drove by this sign that said it was August and I had to get my feedback in by the previous April. And so I was already behind the 8 ball. So it goes to the Planning Commission. And so we tried desperately to get a letter submitted. It was too late for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, even though we stirred up quite the fuss, they did, I guess the benefit during the Planning Commission is we got to some of the commissioners. We were able to have them even include in their submission that setbacks should be addressed by council, the riparian setbacks. So while we were too late to get in on this meeting, we were able to get in on the council meeting. And so going to council is nerve-wracking. I have never done it before, and so I submitted my I submitted a response to the applicant through the website, said I wanted to speak in front of council, and I booked the day off, which is a good thing, because I didn't realize the first council meeting after the summer has like all of the things that they need to get through, and it was like 30 agenda items, and we were 16, and it was probably around 2:30 in the afternoon by the time they got to us, to this application. So that was a fun learning experience, but ultimately we weren't successful in stopping the plan from going through. However, I would say this, wasn't a full failure. I mean, I knew it was a long shot going in. What we were trying to get them to do was just reevaluate the ones closest to the creek. But I was able to talk to some of our other goals, in that we're looking to increase setbacks. And I think that was the most successful thing that happened, was the interest from councillors and the realization from councillors that they have that power in Calgary to adjust the setback lengths. And I think there might have been a preconceived notion that it was a provincial jurisdiction, but the city council has the ability to increase Calgary setbacks. And I think that was the most success I got out of that meeting, in that it got people talking about policy, and the policy around riparian setbacks. So I've had a few conversations with some councillors after that meeting, which is great. And I have like tours set up with some councillors. I have phone calls set up with some councillors. So, while, the overall day, the vote, I think there was there was just this like defeatedness in amongst some of the advocates. It's like, oh, well, that's it. It's really not it. It's the start, and it's the start of a conversation about increased setbacks. And I really need one of these councillors to initiate a administrative inquiry into a possible park. We need City of Calgary resources to start looking at this and start vision casting a park. So lessons learned from going to council: always speak for the creek. We talked to other advocacy groups like the Paskapoo Slopes Advocacy Group, and they've already gone through what we're going through, and they said to be prepared. This is it's hard. It's a hard uphill battle, but it's definitely for us. I like coming and speaking got us on the radar. So always speak up. Number two, monitor the city's online development map. One of the things that is difficult with some of these areas is they're not along a beating path. Like they're kind of tucked away in different areas. And so unless you're looking at the map as a whole, the City of Calgary has a development map that will tell you at what stage each development is at. Always be checking that, because they can pop up, and you just want to be aware of what developments are affecting what watersheds. Another thing, bring snacks. It's a long day at City Hall. Make sure you have snacks and water, and yeah. And lastly, a failure can always be fruitful. And I feel like even though we did not get the vote we were hoping for, we still had some very fruitful conversations after the meeting, and we're looking to push forward in those policy discussions about setbacks. Finally, how can you help? The ways that you can help are you can write your ward councillor. Again, like I've said, we're looking to increase riparian setbacks in Calgary to 300 feet. That's across Calgary. You've probably heard in the news of Ricardo Ranch down in the south. We've been talking with their organizers, and it's so with Nose Creek, the riparian setback is 100 feet. For Bow River, it's only 200 feet. And so if we could just, bump things out to 300 feet across the board in Calgary, how much good could that do? Both for the Bow River, the Elbow River, for Nose Creek, West Nose Creek. West Nose Creek also has Glacier Ridge is a new community that's going to be coming up against West Nose Creek. So it's like, let's really open the book on riparian setbacks, and let's make sure we're giving creeks, giving rivers room to breathe, room to create habitats for nature. And then we also work with other municipalities to vision cast. So we want our councillors here in Calgary to be talking to the councillors in Rocky View County and the councillors in Airdrie. Like this is, we need to work together if we want to vision cast a provincial or urban national park to be in consideration for any of that. We need to work together and see what that looks like across municipalities. Always write your MP, your MLA, tell them you want an official park, provincial or urban national park, depending on the jurisdiction. But we just want that park designation. And so the more MPs, the more ward councillors, the more MLAs that know about Nose Creek, the better. And so if you can personally write your members and representatives, that would be great. And speak for Nose Creek. We're posting on social media. We are we're basically on everything. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter, TikTok. My kids are embarrassed by me on the TikTok and LinkedIn. Please follow us. Please share our posts. If you like, look through our history of posts, pick an old one that and retweet it, repost it. Go to our Facebook page, share that post from our Facebook page onto your feeds. Like, we are trying to increase notoriety. I'm not saying it right. We're trying to increase our presence across Calgary, across Airdrie, across Rocky View County, so that everybody knows who we are, so that when something comes up, people are like, oh yeah, that's that creek. And it will also just kind of push people to go down and investigate what this creek is all about. And also, please visit our website, savenosecreek.com. You can sign up for updates. We hope to possibly have a newsletter in the future, but we'd love to get people. And if you're interested in helping, that's a great way. Just go to the get connected, and we can loop you in on what we're trying to do. So that's my presentation.
Wow. Wow, it's so much to think about there. And I saw oodles and oodles of questions and comments coming in. So I'm excited to get into there. The amount of work that you've done and the learning that you've done just in the last little short time, I think that everybody would join me in sharing that it's really commendable. Andrew, everything that you've done, it's never ever a waste of time to make the effort like you are. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to know you have done everything you possibly can. You didn't stay silent, and you've just gone about this in such a respectful, wholesome way of sharing all of this information. So, wow, really great job on the presentation. Fantastic graphics.
We'll see you. if Crystal agrees. But yeah, I mean, one thing I like about this advocacy is there is a definitive end date. Either we are successful or we're not, and the warehouses will come in and it'll all be developed. So either we'll have a park or we won't, and we'll know, relatively in the next, decade or so.
Let me see what we got for questions in chat here. 1 second there. Oops. There we go. You got quite a fan club here. Let's see. We're going to go back to one of the earlier ones here from Francesca. Is what is or are involved in the logistics of starting and implementing advocacy initiatives such as Save Nose Creek? How did you start all this? You touched on that in the beginning there. But, what does that look like?
You know what? I'm still learning. It's funny because I've been part of other advocacy groups that other people have started, and so I have somewhat some knowledge, and I mean it really just takes one voice to stand up, and that's basically what I did. All I did the day one, July 1st. It's like, I'll just make a bunch of social media. I was gonna go real slow. I'll just make the social media, accounts first, and then I started getting attention. It was real, I think, luck, because when I started was July 1st, and it was getting into Stampede, and people, the media were starving stories, and so they grabbed me right away. And it just takes one story to kind of take off and build on that. And I just went from, like, I think it was like each week I would have a new media outlet coming to me. What's going on in Nose Creek? And I think the other thing was, calling it Save Nose Creek gave it some urgency, and there is urgency. You see all the projects I put on the page. There is an urgency to get this started, because we're running out of time, and we're running out of across the city. Like, we continue to move outward. The more we move outward, the less green space we're getting. So yeah, there was a bit of urgency, and it was just, I mean, start it. I would say just go for it.
Good for you. There is power in one, because, sure enough, other people are thinking the same way, and now you've got a group behind you, as you do with us, for sure.
Well, and I think the one thing that I have been able to do is respectful trolling of people online. And I think I've been able to kind of build a reputation to be able to troll people, but not to a point that's offensive. Able to have peaceful discourse online, and so having that ability, people, and I think one of the inclinations of advocates is especially up here in North Central, is like the cynicism of, oh, this is never going to happen, and then the bitterness sets in, and then you're so eager to jump on a politician that doesn't go your way, and then you don't have any way of moving forward, because you burnt that bridge, and so I think it's just being respectful discourse and good-hearted trolling.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point too, about when you're working with politicians, the city councilors, and we're all learning. And I watched your piece when you spoke for Nose Creek and City Council the other day, and fantastic job. But I listened to all of the follow-up after too, and it's I really admire people who don't mind in that venue to come up with questions and make it clear they're not sure, because those are the questions that start to uncover, like, oh, do we know about this? Is this something we need to look into further? And the way that you do approach people so respectfully allows for that, like we value that safe learning environment. It's okay if you don't know. Come out, walk around the creek with me. Let me show you. Let's learn about this together. And I think you do a really good job of that. Because the more people feel safe to come and ask you the questions, the more they're open to learning,
Yeah,
and the more they'll want to protect it.
absolutely.
Let's see. And my dear cousin Anne out in Toronto was asking about the city on the left hand of the photo. I think it's the one that you've got behind you, and that is Calgary, right?
Yeah, so there's that's city, that's the skyline right there. Then this is Nose Creek, and then I think
Is
the
the
errata,
erratic there? Oh, I
yeah,
see the erratic. Yeah.
right there.
Teeny tiny erratic.
Yeah,
Yeah, there it is. And it's not
uh,
so teeny tiny from what we saw on the bigger picture.
no,
And that's the area you said is really hard to get into. That it's really strange. There's not
yeah,
really
it's
a way.
it's
Except for people who have spray paint, they seem to find a way.
yeah.
But other than that,
I mean, yeah, it's challenging. You've got the railway that limits access. Not that some people still continue to trespass and go through.
yeah,
We try and respect the the areas where you shouldn't be going.
yeah.
And then Country Hills Boulevard, there is no sidewalk. It's just a narrow little desired pathway that's right next to a really fast moving thoroughfare. So and
Mm-hmm.
but it's such like and then they set up this nice little stormwater area that has some garbage cans, and you could walk your dog around it, but you can't get there, so it's
Isn't that great for wildlife, but
yeah,
tough for advocates to get down there and walk
yeah,
about.
yeah,
Totally. Oh, that's great. Now, Crystal mentioned your website, and you had said this too, but you can actually go on there, sign up to get notifications of updates and information. So for everybody who's watching the recording of this later, that is simply savenosecreek.com to go on there and sign up.
yeah.
Now, here's a question that is near and dear to our hearts. Amy, I'm so glad that you've asked this because I'm wondering about this too.
Mhm.
Do you know, and you might not be aware, but do you know, have elders been involved with Save Nose Creek or the development of Nose Creek? Have they been, are they have been advised of what's happening? Do you know if there's any consultation or anything
So
like that?
for our group, we've been in contact with Siksika Nation,
Mm,
and we
good.
are um, it's been a we've been kind of learning about the consultation that they have done. Nothing recent in the Nose Creek Valley. In the West Nose Creek, they have done some consultation with the city of Calgary. Um, but we plan to have a tour with some of the members of Siksika Nation, hopefully in early August. We have something penciled in if it works for them to come out. That said, like one of the earlier articles from 2004, when we were talking about the construction of Stoney Trail, it was Siksika Nation's chief Strader Crowfoot at the time, who suggested at the time that the Nose Creek become both a Indigenous interpretive center and park. Um, I don't see any evidence of anything happening from that in 2004.
Yeah.
And so another reason why we're trying hard to get more consultation with Siksika, and getting them out for a tour in October, hopefully, will be great. We do have contacts with Kainai Nation. We haven't been able
Good.
to connect with them just yet. And we're still looking for contact at the Kani Nation, just the whole Blackfoot Confederacy. We do definitely need their perspective on it, and we've been just scheduling wise haven't been able to get them out. But hopefully, crossing our fingers, it'll be early October that they'll come out and see.
Fantastic. We've been very fortunate and honored to work with a number of folks from different communities, including Siksika and Kainai First Nation, and Mike Brewstead and And First Rider actually did a talk with us with Bird Friendly Calgary and spoke about the rematriation of bison down into Kainai First Nations, which is about 2 hours south of Calgary. And so the presence of having the rubbing on that stone and then all of those pieces, I think those are really significant. And the fact that we're not really certain what else is there. And now fast forwarding from 2004 and 2000, what was the other significant date I'd written down? Was it 2014 was another year that was significant in the approval process, I believe. At that time, truth and reconciliation were not front of mind, and like they are now. And I really hope that there's opportunity to pause and really take a look before it's too late, to protect those spaces, because that is critical for truth and reconciliation to really put words into action. So hopefully that will help with that effort, having the
Absolutely.
involvement of those good people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just so many questions. This is so great. You've got everybody talking. Do, do, do. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, there's a question from Kristen. Just a bit of clarification on the Urban Star Park. So Kristen's asking about whether is that actually located in Airdrie, or is it a concept of Urban Star Park that you're looking to do the dark sky sort of protection over
Yeah.
Nose Creek? Is I guess a clarification I was curious about too, and um,
Yeah. So we learned, so the Urban Star Park that we know about is Cattle Point, which is in Victoria, BC.
in Victoria.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, but that's the designation we're looking for. Like we are still able, like at this point in time, we can still go down into the valley and see stars. Whether that's going to continue or not will be a question of whether or not we get a park through here. But it would be nice to get an urban star park in Calgary.
Fantastic. Let's see. Roland mentions, we've got Roland here from Royal Astronomical Society of Canada for Calgary is here too. And he mentioned there's a similar moat around the erratic on Nose Hill near 64th Avenue parking lot access. And I wonder, is that receiving any protection, that erratic?
I think yeah, I would say Nose Hill is protected.
Yeah.
Much more than we are. I don't know if it's officially protected, but it's
People aren't defacing it like you're seeing here.
Yeah, because you have more traffic, more people who's it's hard to care for something that you don't have access to. And I think most of us in the community would love to be down there caring for it, but it's like access is hard, and the only people that are going down there are the the ones that are wanting to spray paint it. So
yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. Let's see. There was some discussion about your mink. So Susan Holroyd with the Alberta Bat Community Association is here too. Thanks for coming, Susan. And she mentions that is a mink for sure. And then Roland comments that mink are weasels. Sure. And I don't know, Roland, if you want to expand on this at all, but you mentioned that the presence of mink and great blue heron speak to the presence of fish in the creek, which I'm curious on an ecological standpoint what that might mean to the significance of that and the health of the creek and the importance of it.
Yeah, the brown trout is what West or the Watershed Partnership report says that there's more brown trout, especially up West Nose Creek. They're coming back. And then, but there's also invasive species like the crayfish that have come into the creek as well. So, but yeah, definitely you see some crayfish and trout remnants on the creek side. So definitely they're hunting. I know, like the blue herons are always they're just flying up and down the creek, and it's fun to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, like please feel free. I'm sure that my voice must get wearing, so at any time. Let's see here. Or if you've spotted a question too, you're eager to answer too. Um, There's a mention from Christine too that the city doesn't publish much in the way of land use public notices anymore, so you really have to check out the development map online to see what's going on in our areas, and that
Yeah.
feedback can be left there. That's developmentmap.calgary.ca.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best place to find it. I mean, because yeah, you don't, unless like some of these big signs are on vacant land that nobody drives by. Like there's some north of Stoney Trail on these dirt roads. There's land use change signs that nobody's driving that dirt road. Nobody's going to see that. So you do have to scour the development map as best you can. Yeah, a long time ago they used to put them in the newspaper, which again I'm seeing a lot when I'm searching Nose Creek in historical newspapers. That's how they got across. I mean, 2005 when this whole Stoney industrial area structure plan was put out there. They were doing things through the newspaper. Twitter wasn't even invented yet.
What?
So you can't even.
There's life before Twitter? What?
That's right. It's like where did the outrage come from? Like where back in 2005, how did we do this? Facebook was barely, a thing back then. So
Yeah, that's true.
how do you get I mean, I think it just goes to show here in this day and age, we have to speak up. And I, is it too late? It's never too late. And there's until shovels are in the ground, until there's a structure on these pieces of land, we'll just keep fighting.
Agreed. Yep, that's right. Other than that, it's red tape and
Yep.
The funds, right? Simone Lee is here. It's great to see you here. I'm so glad that you've come. Can you speak to how little pull the Nose Creek Watershed Partnership has within our city limits? The city of Airdrie delivers the creek to us in a relatively good condition. It seems it goes downhill from there. And Simone, feel free to unmute and chat too. I know you're very knowledgeable in this area as well, for sure. I think you're with the Confederation. Is that right? Confederation, Save Confederation Creek.
I'm with Friends of Confederation Creek. I'm also with Calgary River Valleys. So I try to keep up on this, and we've been aware of this development on Nose Creek for a long time. And it's been very challenging when local politicians, I'll say his name, George Chahal, said when he was the counselor for the area of Upper Nose Creek, said that we've never been able to meet our expectations for delivering garbage to the creek. So why should we start now? Why don't we just like throw up our hands? And I haven't seen what George Chahal has said since then, but there's an opportunity with a new city councilor there to talk about why Nose Creek should be protected. I'll also say that Nose Creek is a bit more protected with setbacks that developers want to rein in. And I think that they should be told that absolutely no, there are absolutely limits on creeks that should be respected.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective on the work that the Nose Creek Watershed Partnership is doing, I had a phone conversation with Clint Goodman of Airdrie, the Airdrie representative, and I enjoyed hearing the passion behind his voice about Nose Creek. He was very intrigued by what we're trying to do. He's able to was able to get me a meeting with um, Mayor Peter Brown of Airdrie. That's going to be sometime in October. So very very intrigued. We have been talking with the Canadian or the Calgarian or the Calgary partnership rep as well. There's lots of projects, and what the work that the partnership is doing is great. And but you're right, and it was really intriguing to see the light bulb go off in some counselors' heads we were talking about riparian setbacks and their ability to do something about it. I think that was really an aha moment for me, and I'm hoping, like, we have meetings set up with different counselors in October to talk about this, and I hope we can continue to push that policy forward. And I think it's efforts like ours, it's efforts like the Ricardo Ranch group that are really putting riparian areas in the spotlight, and I think we just need to continue to do that and make it uncomfortable for politicians to ignore riparian health. And so yeah, I'm hoping we see a pendulum swing. We now that George Chahal is the MP for the area that we're in here, we are trying hard to get a meeting with him. We've had some back and forth with his office to try and set up a time. Just haven't been able to do that just yet.
Yep. I thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I know how important it is. There are rules for development around creeks. Mm-hmm. And yet often, as we see, these rules get reined in because, oh, this particular development deserves this, and they're going to do some offsetting somewhere else. But I think for Nose Creek within the city limits of Calgary, there's no offsetting to be done. And yeah, and it's really time that we just stop development there.
Yeah, and I mean that's with the land use. So one of the things about going to council about the land use change, I tried to be as respectful as I could. You get your hand slapped if you talk about things outside of the land use designation. But we were able to sneak in some of the riparian setback discussion, and it sounds like if a development came in at a certain time. When riparian setbacks were, at a different length, and they have kind of a grandfathered it. So there's that, like, here's the loophole of why we're closer than the 100 feet. And it's really up to council to rein that in and to be like, no, well, the more we've learned in the last 17 years, we need to apply that to the buildings that are going up now and the developments that are going up now. So yeah, definitely wanting to poke and prod council and have them exercise their ability to do something about it.
Right. That's great. And let me know how I can be of help.
Thanks, Simone.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Simone. Lori has mentioned, now you've been introduced to iNaturalist now. Welcome. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the new addiction. But Lori mentions that they've seen 85 species of birds in the Nose Creek area, and they're recorded in eBird, which is also it's a highly respected worldwide databank of bird sightings. It's iNaturalist is well respected for multiple species of and different flora and fauna. eBird is dedicated purely to birds, and has been organized for a very long time. So there's actually a lot of historical data there as well. And so that's really interesting, Lori, that there's a lot of sightings of the species of birds there too. So I'm not sure, Andrew, if you're familiar with eBird at all.
No.
But I wonder, I'm not an expert by any means. It's, you know, maybe if Lori or someone is open to, you know, helping you navigate that, to maybe get some of the data from eBird, that may be very helpful to see what, you know, more information to support your advocacy.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said before, I had never seen a red-winged blackbird in my life. And then I go down to this creek and it's cool. Like, it was too bad the Calgary bird contest was over, because it's like red, like it's red, yellow, and black. It's like those are Calgary colors. It's like, how did we not? Yeah, how did we not see this bird before? And so,
oh, I feel ashamed to not have thought of that. Actually. Yeah, no, that's so true, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Francesca asks, how could a volunteer participate in the initiative for Saving Nose Creek, and wonders if there's any opportunities or need for, we call it community science, or volunteer field work or anything of that sort. How do people get involved to help you out?
Yeah, if you sign up on our website, we'll and just kind of detail the type of help you're looking to volunteer, we'll definitely use all the help that we can get. This new iNaturalist thing is very cool to me. I think the more that we can log those sightings all up and down the creek. So we created the Save Nose Creek project on iNaturalist, and so anything.
Did you already?
Oh yeah.
There's no grass grows under your feet. Maybe some native grass. That's just very good. I mean, but wow.
I gotta say, it was Sean Fegan that helped me, because I screwed it up royally.
It's not easy. I screwed mine up, and then Matt with YYC Nature Challenge, he rescued me and recreated it to the Rhino Strikes in Calgary. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
I think it's like part of it.
Lost you. But yeah, it definitely was a steeply learning curve. I basically had a project that was Calgary, Airdrie, and Rocky View County, just everything. So it was Sean Fegan that helped me narrow it down to just the creek. So we're logging it, we're looking at it, and we're looking at all the different different species and flowers and everything. So it's been eye-opening. Looking at what has been in that valley, from eagles, bald eagles, to moose, to the bison bones. It's like, this is like a whole new chapter of why we're fighting here.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm not sure if it was me that was breaking up a little bit there. It might be my internet, but we caught just about everything that you said there, Andrew. And I think that's iNaturalist or eBird, if you're comfortable with that application. But iNaturalist is something that anybody can take part in right outside your door, or if you do take a walk over in one of these areas that are trying to be protected, and capture as much as you can on there with photos and with birdsong. You can do that as well. It's very interesting for our learning, and yeah, it really helps to document all these species. Do you happen to know if your project automatically uploads? It does. Like if you're in the area, it automatically captures that.
I made it that way.
Oh. Nice. Okay. Let's see. And Roland, you mentioned a museum, and I don't have context for that. If you want to chat about that, that would be amazing, because I can't open the link just now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I have a system here at work that sometimes doesn't let me Zoom.
Okay.
So this is a museum in Atlantic Canada that is built on a small stream, much the size of Nose Creek. And the cool thing is that the building is circular, and they've basically built it inside a meander loop of the creek. And so the creek runs around the margin, about 2/3 of the building, which is then fully glassed. So you get to see into the creek. And it's one of the coolest little museums I've ever been in. And when I was there, I immediately thought, wouldn't that be cool for Nose Creek? If you're going to have some disturbance, if they're going to build a road across and put a bridge in and realign the creek, this would be the thing to kind of do. That's all.
That's very
just
cool.
A cool thing that I've been thinking about for like 20 years.
No, that's very cool. I mean, I think about how when I look at Airdrie's definitely, because of their history with the Nose Creek Historical Society, they've done a lot. They have a full-on museum for Nose Creek, and they have its own regional park in the center. So definitely looking for Calgary to take some more leadership in that aspect of preserving the creek, of recognizing the history of the creek. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it really is. Donna has left us now, but she made a note here that you've taught so much about Nose Creek and the value it holds, and she is starting her letter writing campaign. So go, Donna. Thank you. And Simone is sharing about the setbacks for waterways from the Crown. There's setbacks from the Crown, but the City of Calgary consistently, ignored them for Nose Creek. And we did touch on that a little bit earlier. Perfect. And Susan's offering a little bit more information too. She said she could work with both Nose Creek and Confederation Creek people to do bat sampling. There's an opportunity for volunteers to help out as well through guano sampling at bridges. And so she's got her email address there. It's susan@albertabats.ca. And Amy mentions Creek Watch samples Nose Creek too. Amy, if you're still with us, if you want to expand on that, you would be most welcome. Susan too, always too, of course. And Susan mentions urban wildlife relies on these small creek features through the city. So these are important habitats and they do need protection. And I think light is so important too. Like even the light that's going to be cast by buildings that are too close is going to have an impact.
Yeah, I was. If you want to look for bat evidence, the little brown, which is my little picture there, is now an endangered species in Canada. It's an urban species, so it's definitely in Calgary. I did actually sample, I did look under one of the bridges along Nose Creek. We do have a Bats and Bridges project this year, and it'll be going on for the next couple of years probably. And we can figure out species from feces, and bats do leave guano underneath bridges. So that provides a link directly to the creek. That bats are using the creek if you find guano underneath a bridge. And it's good you're using things like iNaturalist. I used to wear the environmental consulting hat at one time too, and one of the things you need to have evidence from your site. So having documented observations from that site, and make sure if you ever go to meetings, that you have someone who is there that has been part of that sampling. So you have to have, so it's like when you have environmental witnesses, you should have someone who's been on the site for sure. So just to keep that in mind for future reference, since you're wandering into this pond as a new person, but always haul along someone who's an environmental witness as well. But yes, let me know if you want to get involved in any bat sampling. I could also loan you some handheld bat detectors if you wanted to do some walks up the creek at night earlier in the summer. So anyway, June and July are probably the best times to do that. And you could do some recordings of bat echolocation calls too. So that's another way to sample.
And is it too late now in the season to do that? Like if you
Yeah,
could
it's getting a bit late. Yeah.
getting a bit late now?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks. Thank you so much.
No problem.
You asked about Creek Watch. It's a volunteer program run through the River Watch Institute, and it's volunteers conduct water quality sampling of different creeks, and I know that they sample Nose Creek at a couple of locations in Calgary.
Wow. No idea there was so much going on.
So yeah, contact them, and I'm sure that they'd be able to hook you up with the data and that.
Is the main organization, is that called Creek Watch?
I dropped a link. There is a separate web page called Creek Watch, but as I understand it, it's a volunteer program through the River Watch Institute of Alberta.
River Watch Institute, got it. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's so good to know there's so many people looking out for nature in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely been a new community that I've stepped into, and it's been very welcome, and I appreciate everybody's. But again,
when you started into this, did you think you might be suggested to be picking up guano?
No, the bat detector sounds really cool. That sounds like something out of a Batman comic.
It's actually very, very neat. We Susan was really kind and took Mel Whalen and I downtown Calgary when we were, kind of looking at seeing what kind of bats might be down there, because you only see, if you're lucky, you may see a tiny portion of them. But we were down there and didn't physically see anything or hear anything, and the detectors were picking up quite a few bats of different species right by the Court of Appeal in the park there, and in a few different areas of downtown. And of course, we rescue bats during our surveys as well, so we know that they're there. So it would be very, very interesting to see what's by the creek.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe you have extra time, right, to do a few of these things.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're going to be very well supported by the community.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
And I live in your neighborhood almost, Andrew. I'm in the Hamptons, so.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, fantastic. Lots of thank yous to you. Roland mentioned there's another City of Calgary park that's actively looking at urban star park designation. And I know, well, Roland is involved with Dark Sky initiatives, and actually we're looking to have Roland and Maureen come out in later on in the fall to speak about dark skies. I'm not sure if Roland, if you'd like to chat for 2 seconds about the urban star park designation. Do you know which the other city park that is? It's not Carburn.
I do absolutely know. I'm on the committee nationally that recognizes these. So besides Cattle Point, which I was on the committee approving, we have one in New Brunswick, so the Irving area. So they are looking at the Weaselhead Preservation Society is looking at the designation. Most of the work has been done already for that. And of course, Maureen Luxinger, who is the executive director of the Weaselhead Preservation Society, used to work at the Cross Conservation Area and was instrumental in getting a nocturnal preserve designation for that site from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada.
That's right, too.
So she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, we're definitely it's on our radar. I mean, like, again, we gotta get a park designation to begin with. But when we're able to go down there and see the aurora borealis and these stars in the middle of North Calgary, it would be a shame to lose that. And so definitely hoping we can do something about that.
Thanks, Roland. There is one last question here that I can see, and if anybody else has any, let us know. We'll probably wrap it up fairly quickly here, but because now we've given Andrew a lot more homework. Sorry, Andrew. I kind of I smile when I see this question because this actually came up at the city council meeting the other night. Will there be discussions with the developer?
I mean, so yeah, learnings from the city council. I didn't know whether it was appropriate or not, or how I would go about figuring out who the developer was, how to get their contact information.
Yeah.
So going into it, I didn't know if that was appropriate. I did get questioned by a counselor, had I reached out, and I said no. I didn't get any feedback on whether that was the right or the wrong thing to do. But since then, I've decided to look into it, and I've reached out to the developers of that land use change. I've requested, and I don't know. I'm still learning like what's the best way to figure out the land ownership, and that's a new that's a whole nother thing of trying to and doing it in a respectful way. I don't want to be the anti-development person. Talking to previous counselors, it was funny. I've been talking with so I talked about talking with Brian Pincott, former councillor of City of Calgary. I've also been talking to former councillor Jeremy Farkas, and his comment was that that there's ways of approaching this that's beneficial to everybody.
Absolutely.
Beneficial to the developers, beneficial to the creek, beneficial to the city. It's just we need the resources to get that kind of admin inquiry started to like what is the mechanisms that the city has to acquire the land, to do land swaps, to like is there a fund that we can access as a city? Like there's things that the city administration can do relatively quickly that I'm fumbling my way through, but I'll work on it, I guess, and see like I don't know. We'll see whether there's interest from the developers, and again, like the thing in city council was like you can't force a developer to donate their land, and that's not what I'm trying to do. That's not what our group is trying to do. Our group is trying to put a spotlight on this creek and see how we can make better decisions in these developments as we move forward.
Absolutely, because developers are just people too,
yeah.
who also have interest in the environment and interest in the communities as well. So again, it's one of those things that once things are pointed out about impact and some great things that can be done, then absolutely some great partnerships can happen, and magical things can take place with that kind of partnership and the relationships that you're building. Absolutely.
Yep.
Kristen was just asking, is that the Bettington Erratic, the split rock, or is that a different rock?
So the Bettington Erratic is different than the split rock. Split rock has a little bit more visibility and access. Split rock is definitely the one that people think of when they think of Bettington because it's so close to Bettington. Whereas the Bettington Erratic, they called it the Bettington Erratic because there actually used to be a Bettington Creek that goes through Northern Hills that so again, another creek we kind of destroyed to make a bunch of communities. And if you look at the old maps, you can see where the creek would come through Panorama, and it would go through Coventry. We've turned these into like lakes and stormwater things that used to be a creek. And so where that Bettington Creek would come out is where this Bettington Erratic would be in 1943. And so that's why they call it the Bettington Erratic, which makes no sense now when we have Bettington Heights as a community, which is much further than where the Bettington Creek used to be. So, but the other thing is we could name this whatever we want to name it. That was 1943. It would be great to have a discussion about truth and reconciliation with Siksika. Like, could we name this something more traditional, as this is traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy. So lots of opportunities for that erratic if we were to protect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the truth reconciliation piece is really important. And I'd be really curious to learn more about the designations by the province of Alberta. It came up in the council meeting. I had typed it on my phone, which I don't have in my hand, but they did ask the question about whether there were historical artifacts or sites in that area. And apparently there are several, and I can't remember, it was like number 4 and 5, but there was a special designation for those, but they didn't specify what those are. And they were last reviewed quite a few years ago, and I would say safe to say before we were really conscious of truth and reconciliation. And I wonder if looking at those more closely now with our more current eye on the importance of these artifacts and these sites, and that they may be sacred, if that would shed any light into maybe what what direction this would go. I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I showed in some of my maps, it's like we can, like I'm hoping to shed light on it. I'm hoping it gives pause when you dig and find something. I'm like, when we hear from Brian Pincott that they found stuff, but they had to build this stony trail through it, and so they lost it.
Yeah.
So like I feel like you look at the 1970 end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, when they found the Balzac archaeological site. They had to stop that, and they had to evaluate what to do about it, because it was such a significant site.
Wow.
And now it's protected. I just feel like when you're building a pipeline and you stop dead in your tracks for what they found, there's bound to be more of that further down the creek. And so let's hope they stop and evaluate in the way that they did with the pipeline. But hopefully maybe we can do something about it proactively instead of reactively.
Yeah. And I think today too, we see corporations are truly, a lot of them are really trying to make a difference in that way, because they hold the special position to be able to do that. So I really hope that that's the case here as well.
I think one of the things I like to think about, like, because there's talk of doing something downtown for truth and reconciliation. When you look at Fish Creek Park down in the south, like, you see all the homestead history and the homestead heritage that they've preserved in Fish Creek. Well, we have a Fish Creek up here in the north, and it is Nose Creek, and it is the heritage of the Blackfoot Confederacy. And I really think we need to be doing just as much recognizing the history of the homestead as we do here up in north, and with the teepee rings. Like, there you look at the Stoney Industrial Area Structure Plan. There is a historical resource map, and it's littered with dots of sites of significance. I don't know what those are, like, but in 2005 they knew about it. They knew about all these dots. They're on a map, and so what we do with that information now is, I think, even more important in light of truth and reconciliation.
How do we find out what those dots are?
You know what?
They're protected. The information seems to be pretty protected, which I understand why, but I wonder how one does find that out.
I mean, it's really up to each property landowner to do a cultural resources impact assessment in their development plan. but I'm hoping that they don't go with the original assessments from 2000, 2009, 2013 that didn't have the lens of truth and reconciliation at the time. Let's make sure that we're doing the proper assessments in the 2022 lens.
There was a mention of the developer was really interested in hosting a school in that development. And I couldn't help to think but how incredible it would be to have the school, if the building can be set back so those, the area is protected, and also facilitate some land-based learning right there at what would then be a provincial or a national park.
And that's
how
the thing.
incredible would that be?
It's like how like a developer would be interested to hear of a vision for a provincial or urban national park going in next to their land. Like first of all, the land value, number one. Second of all, like what the possibilities, like they could change their thinking as well of what they would want to do with that land. And definitely want to see and that's why when I went into that land use discussion, it's like there are parcels that I didn't care about. Like there's parcels that, do what you want with them, but let's have a very big, candid conversation about these ones that are next to the creek.
Yeah, that's really important. Well, I think we're probably getting close to wrapping it up. I'm just going to read a couple of things off to you here. They seem to be comments, not questions at this time, but if anybody else has got burning questions last minute ones, now's your chance. Interrupt me. But Susan mentioned the Cooley Park in Lethbridge. It's ecologically kind of similar to this area, and they've got a nature center in that valley called the Helen Schuler Nature Center, which I've actually been there. I've been into the center. But that's an incredible place and a really terrific resource to be aware of. And Simone mentioned, I think we're building an army of Creek supporters. Thank you. Yes, Simone, it's one by one. The Creek, what was it called? The Creek Geeks? Are the army of Creek
the
supporters? Creekettes, yes. Amy mentions the Friends of Confederation Creek group is trying to resurrect Confederation Creek, which is a tributary to Nose Creek. That's interesting too.
I mean, it's really cool. That does intrigue me. It's like, if we are successful up here in the north, like, can you revitalize the Greenview area that was kind of messed up, and which feeds into this Confederation Creek.
Oh, I see.
There's so many opportunities. Like, you could, if you build this park system, from Calgary to Airdrie, you have the West Nose Creek leg, you have the Confederation Creek raised, and you have that leg, and then you can go all the way downtown to the Bow River, and possibly up Bow River all the way to Cochrane, and not Cochrane, to Canmore and Banff. There is like a vision of like connected parks that that is just there, like, for somebody to reach, and it's just trying to convince our politicians that this is a good idea. Let's get some connected parks, some connected ecological areas, and protect our watershed.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew, this has been such a great learning opportunity for me. I have learned a ton from you. You've turned me into a city council watching geek now too, because I learned a lot from that session as well. I think we could almost have you back on to help those of us who aren't familiar with that process to navigation of City Hall 101. But it's a real privilege to have you on here, and we really respect that you're so respectful in your approach. You're very balanced, and you bring humor. I'm sorry about the Arby's situation.
Hey.
You know what? There's other places for Arby's, and
Definitely.
there's got to be one up there
Yeah.
that they can find for you. And we have to just keep hope. I think the message here too is it's never too late. Until it's gone, there's still hope. And I think that in today's day, there's a lot of creative thinking by industry as well. And in looking at those significant historical sites that are right behind you in that picture, how great would it be for industry to have their name on that, for them to be forward thinking, to say, you know what, we want to do the right thing. We need these warehouses here, but we're going to do make an adjustment to do both, and we're supporting that. So I really hope that something like that comes for this, for you. And I'm really grateful for the whole community who's come out with incredible resources and support for you and all of your efforts. So we are here to support you. The other piece that we did talk about too, just really quickly, is with Bird Friendly Calgary. Calgary was certified by Nature Canada as a bird friendly city. There's a rubric that goes along with that, with a point system. And that point system contains all sorts of different things that we are measured on. There's protecting ecological spaces, waterways, riparian spaces, um, dogs in on-leash, off-leash areas, um, roaming cats, any number of items. And I think that, we do have to keep an eye on these things as Bird Friendly Calgary, because all of these decisions, they end up informing how we maintain our status. And we received this certification looking to improve upon things that are in the city, keep things getting better and better. And so we're really wanting to support that vision of making things even better in Calgary and the surrounding area, because everything is connected. So we're really grateful for you, and we hope that we can continue to support you in your efforts. Well done. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to join us next week and the week after, but there's some of your peers who are also advocates. Again, through Eventbrite, if folks can go on back to Eventbrite and find the next 2 sessions, we've got 2 more series. The next one is actually Save the Rosebud, and this is something that we learned about recently. And the community there has been fighting for multiple years of there is a potential major racetrack that will be built upon some very sensitive areas there as well. And it's surprising to me how many years they've been, really trying hard to be heard. So I'm very excited to have them here to really learn a lot more about that. So I hope that all of you are able to join, because I'm sure that they would be really grateful for similar support to what Andrew has received today. And then following that, October 5th, the Foothills Solar Project. This is happening down south of the city, just east of High River. There is a very, very cool place called Frank Lake. And Frank Lake is actually called an important birding area. And I hope I've got that correct. I know Roland will correct me quickly. Yeah, important bird area, IBA. And that's actually designated as its significance in protecting bird species in the area. There is a massive solar panel project that is being slated to be built very, very close to that. And there can be some challenges with solar panels and birds. And but of course, we're just coming to learn. We're trying to be unbiased, but of course, we are here with the interest of protecting the environment in a collaborative way, alongside building relationships. So that is a really important one to come and to hear more about as well. So I'm really grateful for your time, Andrew. Thank you for doing the right thing and being the person who is taking action, and you are supported by all of us, I'm sure. And yeah, I wish you all the very, very best.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for Nose Creek, and so I just enjoy. I don't know. I've become a creek fanatic, and I never thought I would. This would be what I'd be doing in my late 30s to fight for a creek. But very, very honored by the opportunity to speak with everyone tonight.
Thank you very much. And Andrew, if you decide to have a community tour or anything in the area without dangerously costing train tracks, do let us know. We'd be happy to share that information with the community as well. I think it'd be great to get some feet on the ground and visit you there. I'll thank you very much.